I love listening to podcasts.
Golly, that's amazing!
And I've been listening to podcasts to improve my listening skills in various languages for like a decade now. I listen to French podcasts, Italian podcasts, Brazilian Portuguese podcasts, and Spanish ones as well. That's partly why I created my own podcast to help you immerse yourself in British English. And every Friday I upload a new episode. And welcome back to the podcast. So check it out if you don't already listen to it. But to really become 100% fluent in English, you need to not only listen to podcasts which are designed for English learners, but also to try to listen to real, authentic podcasts which are made for native English speakers.
Yo, duh.
In this video, I'm going to tell you about 5 English podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis. I'll explain what they're about and why they could benefit you.
Got it.
And please, let me know in the comments if you have any other recommendations for podcasts so we can all learn from each other. An important thing to remember is that we all like listening to different things and have interests in different topics. So maybe you don't like the podcasts that I listen to, and I don't like the podcasts that you listen to. So my recommendation is to search for podcasts that you are passionate about.
This is a win-win situation for me.
If you like fashion, listen to a podcast about fashion. If you're into cricket, listen to a cricket podcast. If you enjoy stand-up comedy, listen to stand-up comedians. You get the message, right? The first podcast I want to recommend is The Rest is Politics.
And one of them is that the local authorities can't deal with it. That's not the case here. And the second is if the government is facing rebellion.
It's a British podcast hosted by 2 well-known British politicians who now are not in government, but both of them played a role in previous governments. An interesting thing is that one of the hosts is more of a left-wing person, and the other host is a little bit more right-wing. In other words, one of them was in the Labour government and the other was in the Conservative government. And every 2 or 3 days they upload a 40 or 45 minute conversation speaking about things happening both in the United Kingdom and the rest of the world. And they're quite knowledgeable people who have lots of important connections, so then they give their analysis on different political situations, and I think they do a really good job at it.
In relation to the overall strategy. So Fiona asked me the other day, if Musk suddenly started giving loads of money to the Democrats, would I welcome that? Would I think that was a good thing?
It's a good question.
It's a very good question. It's a very good question.
Of course, they deal with lots of controversial topics, and right now the world is in a pretty horrible place. So it's interesting to see how they analyze and discuss what's going on and how, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can come out of it being better and safer and more balanced. But how likely it is, I'm not sure. They do try to add a little bit of humor from time to time, so it's not all doom and gloom.
What's with the doom and gloom?
But if you're interested in current events and politics in the UK and the rest of the world, then I'd check out The Rest is Politics. They're British, but there is also a The Rest is Politics US, if you prefer listening to an American accent.
He wasn't answered until the early 1980s.
The second podcast I want to recommend is probably the one that I listen to most because it's related to my biggest passion, which it's not teaching and it's not languages, it's actually football. And the name of the podcast is Football Weekly by The Guardian.
I love football too!
It's slightly misleading maybe because the name is Football Weekly, but in fact they have 2 or 3 episodes every week. And basically what they do is discuss what's going on in the football world. Of course, It's a British newspaper, so they focus quite a lot on English football and the Premier League. But of course, when you have the Champions League, the World Cup, they discuss all of these topics as well. And you have one main host, or perhaps two, and then there is a rotating panel of journalists from all over the world, and they give their knowledge, analysis, and expertise. And again, they discuss all of these topics in a very funny way. There's always good vibes, and it's a good challenge for your listening skills, given that you have Scottish people, Welsh people, English people, Irish people, Australian, and then other non-native speakers who of course speak fantastic English as well.
I enjoyed it. I do. You don't want too many 10-0s, but the odd 10-0. I sometimes wonder why sort of these really strong sides don't end up hammering the minnows. I mean,
personally, it's my go-to football podcasts. Even though there are so many football podcasts out there, The Guardian Football Weekly is the one that I like the most because I feel like I get along really well with all of the hosts, and they don't only talk about what's happened in the football world. They'll also deal with some bigger, more controversial issues related to football, like the ownership of PSG and Newcastle and Man City, which are owned by oil states. So there's a lot of sports washing. They also try to offer lots of advice to people who are suffering in football, and they 100% support equal rights, and they try to make sure that, well, football, despite being such a controversial and sometimes a bit dodgy industry, they seem like their values are in the right place, and they have special reports about the Qatar World Cup, about what's going to happen in the United States in the next World Cup at the moment as well. So it's interesting that it's not just an analysis of football, it goes beyond that.
Germany, key part in winning the title under Alonso, double figures for both goals and assists in the Bundesliga in the last 2 seasons.
Let me know, are you a football fan? If so, have you already listened to this podcast? And if not, do you listen to any other football podcasts? Again, let me know in the comments. My third recommendation is The Diary of a CEO.
She says, "Did you get this answer from ChatGPT?" And you go, "I did." How's that going to go?
And this is an interesting podcast that isn't only about business, it's about life and philosophy and many other things at the same time. And it's hosted by a young, successful British businessman. His name is Stephen Bartlett, and he has many companies. He's an investor. He features on the TV program Dragon's Den, where you have different investors who are listening to pitches of aspiring entrepreneurs. And Stephen, like the other guests and judges, has the possibility of investing and buying a stake in companies. But anyway, that's not what he does on this podcast. What he does on the podcast is, well, mainly interview other famous people, influential people, scientists, business people, role models from all over the world. And he has a chat with them, asks them about their feelings, their life. And it's interesting because you get to understand more about these famous, successful people, and they discuss really interesting topics at the same time. And this podcast is a video podcast, so you can watch it or just listen to it. But it's interesting to see how far the podcast has come, because previously, 10 years ago, maybe less, when he started the podcast, he was literally just recording from the comfort of his own room and speaking about literally what he was doing in his day-to-day. And he was telling everybody about the meetings he was having, about the decisions he was making whilst directing his business. And The podcast has changed over the years, where now it focuses much more on interviews because he's a very well-known person and he is able to use his platform to interview many different people. So that is the Diary of a CEO, and it's all related to business, philosophy, science, technology, all of these topics with interviews. It's really interesting. Give it a go.
I'm gonna be honest, so far more unhappy than happy.
Well, has it ever crossed your mind to quit YouTube as a whole?
Oh yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you?
Oh boy.
Number 4 is TED Talks Daily, which I think most of you will be familiar with TED Talks because it's a huge company that organizes speeches and presentations around the world, and each one of these are recorded.
Surprising that as a professional tree hugger, I'm going to be speaking to you about supply chains.
So you have a speaker on stage and they choose a different topic, and TED Talks Daily, every single day you have a new presentation or speech, talk that you can watch or listen to. So you never really know what the subject is going to be. It could be related to science, psychology, the planet, innovation, behavior, literally anything. I think the premise is that they find interesting people and personalities who have achieved something in their field and they want to share it with others. And of course, you can watch any of these talks whenever you want on the website or on the app of TED Talks, which I also recommend, because if you do it there, then you can read any of the translations. So maybe you can listen in English and then compare the transcript and read the translation after. So the possibilities are endless, but because this is all related to podcasts, what I do is just when I go for a walk or when I'm doing something, I try to listen to the daily TED Talk because it's really good to learn about interesting themes and subjects, because there are lots of things in this world that I'm not very familiar with, and by listening to TED Talks Daily, my mind is opened a little bit. You know, I'm trying to broaden my horizons so I can become a little bit of an expert in a different topic every day. And of course, all of these talks are from people around the world in different places. So there's no guarantee that they're going to be native English speakers, but they're all going to be successful speakers. And it's a good way of actually practicing speaking in front of an audience because you're seeing how other experts are able to do it, to grab your attention and to use their voice. So that's it. TED Talks Daily. Give it a listen.
In 1972, the US passed a landmark piece of legislation.
And my 5th recommendation is the only one which is 100% American, and it's a guy who is very well known and very viral, and his name is Alex Horoszi.
And if I had to start over from scratch today, this is the most important concept to learn. Right?
And the podcast is called The Game with Alex Horoszi. And this podcast is all about business, pure, hard business. And I think I started listening to this podcast maybe a year ago as I was trying to study and learn more about managing my own business. Because for those of you who don't know, this year I became my own boss 100%. I left my last job and I wanted to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible, about being an entrepreneur, about having my own company, and much, much more. And at first, I was a bit skeptical. I was a bit hesitant. I saw this guy who's really muscly, he's got a big beard, and from the short videos that would pop up on my feed, I'd look at him and think, surely he's just lying, right? He's just trying to grab your attention, you know? I don't really trust him. And I haven't changed my mind 100%, but what I like about his podcast is that he'll share lots of life lessons and business lessons that he has learnt during the last 10 years of being a successful entrepreneur, because he quit his previous job, he went and set up gyms in the United States, he went broke, he went bankrupt, and then he made the money again, and now he is a big personality in the business world, and he invests in different companies. And on the podcast, which is really regular, he uploads a different video or just audio more or less every day. And the format that I like the most is when he invites lots of other business owners to have, let's say, a brainstorming session with him. And these business owners will always ask him for advice. They will explain their business model, and then they'll always have a question that they want to ask Alex. And it's interesting to hear what these people do in their lives, and then how Alex can dissect the problem and then give lots of advice to these hopeful entrepreneurs. So it's not for everyone, because I think it's perfect if you're into business. If not, a lot of what they say will probably just go straight over your head. I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it a year ago, but nowadays I'm really into it, and you've got to know what information is valuable and not. But on the whole, he shares lots of little gems that you can, if you want, apply to your own life if you want to become an entrepreneur and set up your own successful business.
For all customers for the whole year, divided by number of customers.
So that's it. Those are 5 podcasts that I listen to on a weekly basis that I really recommend if you are interested in politics, football, business, speeches, and different interviews with interesting people.
Yeah, sounds great.
Let me know. Have you already listened to any of these podcasts? And as I said earlier, what other podcasts do you listen to? Maybe I want to open up my horizons and listen to some of the podcasts that you normally listen to. So if you want to share any of them, you can share them in the comments. Thanks for watching so much, and of course, don't forget to listen to my podcast as well. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.